What's up, all you Faceoff fanatics, and welcome back to the Faceoff Zone Podcast, a podcast dedicated solely to the Faceoff position. I'm your host, John Bodner, and I'll be breaking down and covering all the big Faceoff storylines of this upcoming NCAA lacrosse season. On this episode, I'm going to revisit my list from last week about teams with the biggest question mark at the Faceoff position going into the season. I had made a little error, and I need to address it, so we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to start breaking down the ACC conference and start talking about the heavy hitters on each team. So it's going to be a lot of fun. If you haven't already, please give Faceoff Zone a subscribe on YouTube or a follow on Instagram so you can see all the upcoming full game Faceoff highlights of this upcoming season. So let's get this thing going and let's dive deep into the zone. All right, so let's get this thing going again. Welcome back. If you are listening to our second episode here, I think it's pretty safe to say you've got a problem like me with face-offs. And trust me, this is a safe space here, so we can talk about it, address it. It's all good. So before we get into the ACC conference, I wanted to address a little mistake I made in the first episode. So, of course, I post this first episode, and once I did, I went back to Loyola's roster. And I realized I must have looked at the 2021 roster when I was doing my research. Or maybe he got added last minute. I don't know. But, you know, no fancy producers over here. This is a one-man band over here. So I did find out that, and I got confirmation that Bailey Savio is indeed coming back as a grad student, which is huge news for the Greyhounds, great news for the Greyhounds. And I could have sworn I looked at the 22 roster, but, you know, who knows? Maybe I didn't. So hashtag Baileygate or Savio-gate, whatever you want to call it. But the fact of the matter is Bailey is back, reunited with his teammate, Ryan McNulty, on the wing, which is huge, bad news for everyone else, especially in the Patriot League. So with Savio back, it certainly makes the Patriot League face-off situation a lot more interesting going into this season. It also makes the Lehigh-Loyola game already a can't miss for us face-off fanatics. I mean, I think we're kidding ourselves if we don't think Bailey has kept that beating he took last February by Lehigh and Mike Sisselberger in the back of his mind. So I'm sure he and Loyola are looking forward to some payback this regular season. They weren't able to play in the Patriot League championship against Lehigh. It had gotten canceled because of COVID. So all Bailey really has is that bad taste in his mouth from last February. So it's going to be a war this upcoming season. So that will be cannot miss. So with my screw up on Loyola, I'm gonna this is my show, so I'm gonna scratch them off my list here of initial teams with the biggest question marks at face-off going into the 22 season. And I'm gonna throw another team out at you guys. And you could technically I could throw any Ivy League team out at you guys because I feel like it's been 10 years since we've seen the Ivy League play. And there's a lot of question marks with pretty much all those teams in the Ivy League. But what about the Yale Bulldogs? Okay, I think about it. The last time we really saw an important Yale game, TD Ireland was their face-off guy, and he's long gone now. So, what about Yale? Who are the guys on Yale? Who are they going to roll out there come end of January, beginning of February? It's a very interesting one. They certainly have names that we all know on the roster, but who's going to be the guy? Who's going to be the guys on Yale? So I wanted to kind of take a look at some of these names. Let's break them down. We'll start with senior Joe Newman. Joe Newman has been around the block for a while now, waiting for his shot. He's backed up TD. He backed up TD as a freshman in 2019, got into 9 games. 2020, before the season got canceled, he was only able to play in 2 games. Joe Newman was, if you guys listened to my episode, the first episode, Joe Newman was the other face-off guy back in 2018 that got invited to play Mike Sisselberger in that senior Under Armour game that I was telling you about in the first episode. Joe Newman was the second-ranked incoming face-off specialist in the 2018 class, according to Inside Lacrosse. racked up a number of awards and honors while at the Salisbury School up in New England. I remember Joe Newman when he was in high school. He was extremely dominant when he was knee down. I'm very curious to see how he looks these days. I know this isn't how he imagined his career would go at Yale, but I can't imagine he's ready to just pack it in and call it a career. He's a Long Island guy. He's got that crazy strong work ethic. I don't know who he's training with up there, but I'm sure he's working with somebody or a number of guys. So I can't imagine he won't get some opportunities this season. So let's kind of move down this list here. Newman is a senior. Let's go down to a pair of sophomores. We got Nicholas Ramsey and James Ball. Both played at really strong high school programs. Ramsey played at Del Barton, and then he took a grad year at the Hun School in New Jersey. Both good programs. And James Ball played at Chaminade in New York. So I'm sure most of us have heard about Chaminade there. So both guys played very good high schools. James Ball, let's talk about James Ball. James Ball was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, number 2 ranked incoming faceoff specialist, according to Inside Lacrosse. James Ball was always a guy you heard a ton about on the club lacrosse circuit. I certainly remember a lot about James Ball. He seemed to pretty much make every all-star game or honor you could get at any of these NLF or any of these big-time events. So, again, the last time I saw James Ball, he was down on a knee. So I can't really speak for what he's been up to lately. I do remember he had crazy, he really good stick skills back in high school. He could stay on and play midi, scored a lot of points. So I can't imagine that he hasn't adjusted well to the new rules. I think he's definitely one of those safe guys that, I would imagine the Yale coaches might feel comfortable leaving on the field if he were to get stuck on defense or who knows, maybe even play a little offense after if the opposing faceoff guy gets stuck on the field, maybe he'll take a guy to the rack. So James Ball's an interesting one. Ball's in that class. He graduated high school in 2020. Pretty much lost his senior year of high school, lost his freshman year at Yale to COVID. So, listen, I can't imagine he's not fired up to finally get back on a field, and I, for one, can't wait to see how he looks. So, James Ball. Let's talk about the other sophomore here. This Nick Ramsey. Nick Ramsey. I know he works up in North Jersey with Jerry Raganese and a bunch of those guys. I've been told he's no joke. He works extremely hard, from what I hear. A couple people I know have seen him training, and they told me he's very legit. He's a big, strong, athletic guy who can kind of throw anything at you. I heard he's got some pretty nasty counters. He's also getting pretty confident on the whistle as well. So Ramsey's another guy that could get some early opportunities coming up in February. We'll see. You can't go wrong with Ramsey or Ball. So between those three guys, and then you have a freshman, the fourth guy on this roster is freshman Machado Rodriguez. And if you're, around the club circuit, Rodriguez is another highly ranked recruit. I see here on NLF Recruits and Inside Lacrosse, he's arguably 1 or 2 in the class of 2021. He also had a very successful career at Chaminade, where he went 82% last season using the new stand-up rules. So, listen, Rodriguez, you can argue and make a case that Machado might have the most high-level game experience using the new standing neutral grip rules out of all these guys, because he played all last spring, unlike the 3 older guys on Yale's roster. So I'm by no means saying he's got a chance to start over these older guys on the roster, but I can't imagine Machado hasn't come into Yale and is already kind of competing with these guys during practice. He's definitely legit. There's no doubt about it. All 4 of these guys are very good. And Yale is, without TD now, what's their identity? Which of these guys, maybe one, maybe two, are going to step up? It's a long season now, a lot of games now that teams can play out of conference. So the Yale Bulldogs have now taken place of Loyola on my list. So put the word out. Yale has some serious weapons, and I can't wait to see how the coaches use these guys. So Yale Bulldogs, number 3 on my list. All right, so let's get into our second part here. I know I mentioned at the end of the first episode that I was going to get into my top 10 can't-miss regular season face-off matchups. But to be honest with you, right now, still early January, a lot of teams haven't announced their schedule yet. They're not made public. So, listen, lacrossebucket.com has been doing a great job keeping track of all the schedules that are out right now, and almost has some games that they know are on the books, but they don't have the dates and, they don't have the times and where they are yet. So we got plenty of time. I'll get into those top 10 matchups at a later episode. I think I want to just start breaking down some of these conferences, talking about some of the heavy hitters in some of these conferences. And I think it's fitting if we start in the ACC conference right now. The ACC was loaded to the gills last year with face-off talent. This upcoming season, I did talk about Notre Dame in my first episode, so they do have some question marks. Losing Kyle Gallagher and Charlie Leonard is huge. There's, I talked about some of the guys on their roster, so if you haven't heard the first episode yet, please go take a listen if you want to hear more about the Irish. So I'm not going to talk too much about the Irish right now. Let's start with Duke. Duke, if you watched any of Duke lacrosse last year, I think we were all shocked at the level of play out of their freshman faceoff guy last season, Jake Naso. Jake Naso, Long Island guy, came in as a freshman with a lot of hype, and man, did he kind of light the world on fire last season. It was what Jake Naso did last season as a freshman at a school like Duke. I'd put his freshman season up against anybody's freshman season. Baptiste's freshman year, TD's freshman year. I mean, when you think about the level of talent that he had to go against on a daily basis. I mean, and he ended up, not only did he hold his own against these guys, I mean, he ended up being first in the ACC in faceoff percentage. Out of all these, you have the Notre Dame duo that I talked about. You have the UNC duo with Tucci and Tyre. You have Jake Naso, P.D. LaSalle at Virginia. You had Danny Varello and Jake Fopp, a pair of older face-off guys at Syracuse. And Jake Naso walks in and says, "Hey, hold my beer, everybody," and goes out and does his thing. Let me just quickly go over some of Naso's stats from last season. He won 227 out of 361 face-offs, which was ranked first in the ACC. He was around 63% last season. He had 3 goals, 2 assists, ended up 10th nationally in the face-off percentage chart. He ended up earning honorable mention, All-American honors. And if you've watched any film on Jake Naso from last season, I think there's plenty of full game face-off highlights from him on my channel, on my YouTube channel. You could also watch his full season face-off highlights that we made for him. The first thing you'll notice is just how insanely quick he is, how fast he can get the ball out. His quick exit is just so hard to stop. When he's on the whistle, I mean, just watch out. Yeah, he had 3 goals, 2 assists. I remember a couple of his goals came in some big moments. Yeah, I mean, he won some big overtime faceoffs, which is just, as a freshman, is very impressive. Jake Naso, he's must watch TV. I mean, me personally, I'm really looking forward to Naso lining up against PD LaSalle at Virginia again. They kind of almost like, they're kind of like built the same way. They're a little smaller, but super tough and super fast. Just they're both kind of threats to the cage. It's going to be a lot of fun, that matchup. But it's a long season. I mean, he took 361 faceoffs last season, and that's a lot. I mean, the only person who took more faceoffs than Jake Naso last season was PD LaSalle, and we'll get to him later. But he took over 400 last year, which is insane. But it's a long season. These guys, everybody's going to be playing more games this upcoming season. They're not just playing their in-conference games. And let's talk about who else they have on this roster, because like I said, it's a long season. If you look over at what the Tar Heels did last year, they did a fantastic job kind of splitting up the reps, making sure no one gets burnt out. And Duke has another faceoff guy in Jordan Ginder, who didn't take too many. He only took 33 faceoffs last year, but Jordan Ginder's a guy who could be starting for a lot of other D1 teams out there right now. And I truly believe they should be utilizing him a little bit more this season. And let's talk about Ginder real quick. I mean, I felt really bad for Ginder back when the season got canceled in 2020, because Ginder was having he was off to a very hot start. I mean, he had already won 99 of 167 faceoffs. He picked up 58 ground balls. He was third in the ACC in faceoff percentage. Ginder's a guy who was highly, he was a high-ranked recruit coming out of, where did Ginder go to school? I don't have that in front of me. I know he's a New York City kid, but anyway, he had an amazing high school career, had a great year in 2020, had some moments for Duke last year. Again, 33 faceoffs. It's not that big of a sample size, but I just think he's too talented to kind of leave on the bench. I do think we'll probably see more of him this upcoming season if Duke's coaches are kind of smart about it. But that's really it. Duke only has 2 faceoff guys on the roster this year, which is pretty surprising. A little risky, God forbid they don't have any injuries or anything, but 2 faceoff guys. I mean, listen, Duke's their team is just so loaded this year. They're going to be must-watch TV. Any of the ACC matchups are going to be great, but that's we'll kind of cap it off there. They've got Naso and Ginder. I can't wait to kind of see how they both get utilized this year, and trust me, we'll be keeping an eye on it. So Duke is our first ACC team here. All right, so let's dive into our second ACC team here, and that's the University of North Carolina, UNC. Anybody who followed me last year, I know, I said on the first episode I loved the Notre Dame duo of Charlie Leonard and Kyle Gallagher, but if there was ever a very close second, had to have been Zach Tucci and Andrew Tyre at UNC. Those 2 guys have now taken the place, for me, my opinion, of the Notre Dame duo. They are now my absolute favorite duo. I'm going to talk about Bryant down the road a little bit too, but right now they're my favorite duo. Tucci and Tyre. They were, kudos to the faceoff coach over there at UNC, Will Fox, he did a phenomenal job kind of dividing up the duties of both of those guys last year. And it was almost magical to watch at times how they would go in after each other and, score back-to-back goals or just be completely electric. Let's start with senior Zach Tucci. And he gets a lot, he's the oldest. He's, towards the end of the season got the majority of the reps, rightfully so. He ended up getting All-American last year. He had the high bouncer heard around the world. If you saw it on social media or YouTube that high bouncer against Rutgers is legendary. And then he just sprinted all the way back up to the middle of the field. I mean, like a total badass. I'm getting off topic here, but we all obviously, hopefully you all have seen that clip, and Tucci is an animal. Let's talk about Zach Tucci real quick. He appeared in all 16 games last season for the Tar Heels, took 257 faceoffs, won 146 of them for 57%. Had 5 goals, probably all 5 high bouncers. He had 1 assist. Led the team with 69 ground balls. Nice. He's the fastest kid I've heard on the team. It's once he gets the ball forward, he's like a deer out there. You'll see. I mean, his first couple steps are just ridiculous. He is, like I said, a lot of fun to watch. He's going to be a problem this year for a lot of teams. He is to say he's a threat with the ball after the faceoff is just an understatement, complete understatement. I love it when if someone violates, if someone goes early against Tucci, he'll just, there's one specific, I can't remember which game it was, but somebody violated and he was just waiting for that ref to blow the whistle, and he just blew by everybody and buried a goal. He is a total threat with the ball after the faceoff, and he's got wheels. So that's my scout on Zach Tucci. Good luck to all of you ACC guys or anyone playing him this year. He's an animal. But let's get to the second guy, and that's Andrew Tyre. And again, no slouch either. He is also, he might be, I'd love to see the two of them in a foot race, but I would still probably give it to Tucci. Tyre took 212 faceoffs last year, so you had Tucci with 257, Tyre with 212, and he won 110 of them. He had 53 ground balls, 4 goals, 3 assists. I remember specifically he had a big goal against Virginia that was very impressive. He's took, it's not like he just got garbage time. He took some big faceoffs when it mattered, and honestly, at any given time, he could take one to the rack as well and make you pay. So these two guys, both very athletic, both very fast. They're pretty similar in a lot of ways. Tucci looks a little bit bigger, like muscular, kind of stronger out there, but Tyre's, he's still young. They're going to be a problem for a lot of teams this year. The total must-watch TV, the UNC duo, and the rich get richer because now they have a freshman coming in, Chase Mullins from DC. He was the consensus #1 incoming faceoff specialist on NLF Recruits Inside Lacrosse. He dominated that senior Under Armour All-Star game this past summer. I think he got MVP of the whole game. I think he won like 40 faceoffs in that game or something. It's interesting. I've seen Mullins play a couple times, and Chase Mullins, a little bit different build than Tucci and Tyre, which might be good for UNC this year. He's not as much of a threat to the rack after like Tucci and Tyre are, but he's just like consistent, like he's just going to win you faceoffs. which, hey, to a coach, that's really all you want. Someone who can you can rely on to just win a lot of draws. And he's a big kid, big strong kid. He very good on very clean on his exits. He was very dominant when guys were knee down as well, but he put the time in. He definitely adjusted to the new rules, and he was the consensus number one incoming, faceoff specialist. So, you throw him in with Tucci and Tyre, and God only knows, I would love to be a spectator at one of those practices and seeing the three of them all kind of get reps against each other. I would love to see, just on any given day, kind of who gets the better of who. But man, what a lineup between those three guys. So the UNC the UNC face-off crew is certainly legit. And I can't wait for the UNC Virginia matchup. Obviously, any of the ACC matchups, I can't wait for it. But that is pretty much the breakdown on the UNC guys. If I'm a betting man, I would say that they'll probably roll out Tucci to start right out the bat. But again, they're shout out to Will Fox. He's done a phenomenal job, kind of divvying up the face-offs for these guys, and it really worked out pretty perfectly last year. So let's see how it all kind of shakes out this upcoming season here. All right, so let's talk about our third ACC team here, and it's your two-time defending national champions, University of Virginia Cavaliers. And listen, if you're listening to this podcast, I have to imagine that you know who Virginia's face-off guy is. But just in case you've stumbled upon this, have no idea what you want to learn more about the face-off position. Let's go over who Virginia's face-off guy is. It's P.D. LaSalla, number 23. P.D. LaSalla. We're witnessing something pretty special down there in Charlottesville with LaSalla and Virginia. He's a two-time national champion already. You could argue he could have been the MVP in both of those national championships. Actually, he started out in the first game, first national championship. He squared off against TD Erlin and held his own. For those of you who remember, he had a couple really nice goals in that game. Started off pretty hot in the second national championship game. Second half, kind of Maryland kind of caught up to him a little bit, but at the end of the day, listen, at the end of the day, if there's a big face-off to be won, ask any of the ESPN guys, ask anybody who's watched any Virginia lacrosse or ACC lacrosse, and you want P.D. LaSalla to take that face-off. If you want to talk about highlight videos, there's a ton of full game face-off highlights of P.D. LaSalla on my YouTube channel. He's a human highlight reel. His full season face-off highlights that I made for him is pretty dope as well. The first minute is pretty much just all the ESPN guys just talking about how much of a badass he is. And really, rightfully so. I mentioned kind of during the NASO breakdown that P.D. LaSalla took. Let's kind of just talk about P.D. LaSalla's stats real quick. It's pretty absurd. I was looking on his on Virginia's website at just kind of all of LaSalla's achievements so far in the 2.5. We're not really counting the COVID year, but in the 3 seasons he's been there, and it would take like a half hour to pretty much read all these off. So, let's kind of PD. Let's go over his stats here. He's kind of like Gerard Arceri was at Penn State. I mean, P.D. LaSalle has taken an ungodly amount of faceoffs in his career already for UVA. Last season, he took 444 faceoffs, 444. The next closest guy I told you was Jake Naso with like 360 or something. I mean, 444 faceoffs is just absurd. He won 277 of them. LaSalle took almost 100 more than Naso, which is, it's crazy. It's definitely, it's a lot on the body. Obviously PD takes really good care of his body, because I don't know how many other guys who, that can take that many and not miss any time to injuries or anything. I mean, PD didn't miss a game last season. He played, and he played all the time. Clearly, he took over 400 faceoffs. Let's talk about P.D. LaSalle after the faceoff. I mean, he had 10 goals last season. I talked about Zach Tucci and Tyre being threats after the faceoff, but P.D. LaSalle is almost in his own class. I mean, he had 10 goals. Like I said, some of them were just, I'm sure you've seen the spin cycle I posted on my social media, and the spin cycle goal. He had a couple give and goes that were pretty sick. His national championship goals. He dished out 7 assists as well. I mean, a couple of his goals probably could have made the SportsCenter top 10 last season. The way he's able to kind of escape pressure after he wins a faceoff and spins through guys. I mean, he's crazy, like slippery. Maybe I'll call him Slippery Pete this upcoming season. I'll throw it on a t-shirt. You know me, I'll probably throw it on a t-shirt or something. But yeah, I mean, Slippery Pete, the guy's a legend. I mean, we're right now, we're kind of witnessing P.D. LaSalle right now is kind of in the middle of a Hall of Fame type career so far at UVA. I mean, it's like, you watch P.D. LaSalle right now, and it's like, man, I could tell kids like 10 years from now that I was kind of watching him, when it was going on, and it was unbelievable. He's, like I said, two-time national champion, 2-time All-American. As long as he's healthy, obviously he's going to be the guy for UVA. He's got 2 more years of eligibility left, which is, I'm looking at all the records that he holds already and all these achievements. I can't imagine how much longer this list is going to get by the time he eventually leaves Virginia. But I'll kind of stop there. He is, I mean, all things, if you want, he's right now, he's at the top. I mean, he was a second-team All-American last season behind Mike Sisselberger. Depending on who you talk to, you could make a case that he maybe should have gotten first-team All-American last year. It was interesting. I mean, he was over 50% against pretty much everyone he played last season, except for Syracuse. And if you watch the 2 Syracuse games last year, he wasn't just like a little bit under 50%. I mean, he got worked in both games pretty hard, which was, a testament to Jake Fopp. He had 2 really good games against him. The ground ball gods were certainly on Syracuse's side for both those games as well. But I can't imagine PD doesn't have Syracuse kind of circled on the schedule this year, because, again, if you watch, those were really kind of his 2 only hiccups of the 2021 season was Syracuse. But really, other than that, I mean, he took care of business. And when he gets in a groove, he seems to kind of, start out maybe a little slow, but as the game goes on, he just kind of gets more and more confident. And, like I said with Mike Sisselberger, the brighter the lights, the stronger the performance that you'll get from P.D. LaSalle. Listen, I could probably do a whole episode on PD here, but let's move down this roster. UVA is kind of in a similar situation right now as Duke. they only have 2 faceoff guys on the roster right now. They had 3. They had one guy, Gavin Ty from Philadelphia. He was a rising junior, and he transferred out of Virginia over the summer. He's on Maryland now. I'll talk more about Gavin Ty when I break down the Big Ten, but that's a big pickup for Maryland. But right now, let's talk about the other faceoff guy they have on this roster, and that's Gable Braun. Gable Braun, he is a sophomore, Florida native, went to high school in Maryland at the MIAA powerhouse McDonough. He had a great career there. I definitely remember Braun when he was in high school. He was a stud. He appeared in 8 of UVA's 18 games last season as a freshman. He only took 33 faceoffs last season, won 19 of them. He's definitely a different build than Petey LaSalla. You know, LaSalla is like 5'8". Gable Braun's about 6'1". Got them long arms. He can counter well. He had a couple. I do remember he had a couple nice counters in some of UVA's games last season. Got a great stick. You know, he's got some pretty good stick skills. Gable Braun. Listen, I mean, Petey LaSalla took over 400 faceoffs last year. I don't recommend anybody really doing that. I guess if anybody can get away with it, it's LaSalla. You know. But I have to imagine that Gable Braun will get more faceoffs this season just because they're playing more games this upcoming 2022 season. They have to be a little bit smarter about conserving Petey LaSalla and making sure that he's fresh for the ACC tournament and let's face it, probably the NCAA tournament as well. So they, you know, I would. If there's hopefully if Virginia's coaching staff is smart, they will incorporate. Try to give Gable Braun 5 to 8 faceoffs a game, maybe just to get him, kind of going, get him involved and kind of preserve Petey a little bit. But that's it. You know, I'm really only seeing Petey and Gable Braun on this roster right now. I know they have a really good incoming 2022 faceoff guy coming in next year, but right now it's just the 2 of these guys. So, like I said, you know, Virginia's a team you'll be seeing a lot of on my social media this upcoming season. I personally, I've told you guys already that, you know, that LaSalla-Naso matchup will be legendary. But that's all I got for Virginia here. The fact that Petey LaSalla still has 2 more years left it's pretty terrifying. But we'll see how it all shakes out. So UVA, my 3 team here. We're going to get into Syracuse coming up next. All right, so since I already kind of talked about Notre Dame in the first episode, we're going to finish off here with our final ACC team, and that's Syracuse. Syracuse, I mean, always a hot topic in lacrosse. New coaching staff, they picked up Air Gate. You know, the legend Gary Gate as their head coach. A lot of exciting things going on up in upstate, up in the Dome, and up in Syracuse. I'm very interested to just see as a whole how Syracuse does this year. I mean, again, the ACC, you got Chris Gray at UNC, you got Pat Cavanaugh at Notre Dame, you got Connor Schellenberger in that offense at Virginia. I mean, the ACC is just so loaded, and I can't wait to see what, you know, how Gate has these guys, you know, coming out. And let's go over their face-off guys here. I mentioned Jake Fopp a little bit during the Virginia breakdown. Jake Fopp is a senior. Jake Fopp is a extremely hard worker. I've known Jake since he was a young man, and I don't know many guys with a stronger work ethic than Jake Fopp. You know, Jake Fopp doesn't come from your typical high school hotbed. He came from a public school in Pennsylvania that had guys on the team that, were kind of just like football or wrestlers who could barely throw and catch. And, Fopp was a wrestler kind of growing up, and he got into lacrosse late and got scooped up by Syracuse and has grinded for pretty much everything he's ever kind of worked for. And it was a shame. He's another guy like Ginder at Duke in 2020. I felt terrible for him when COVID kind of canceled the 2020 season. He was having a heck of a year as a need. When guys were still knee down, he was at the top of the ACC charts that season for Syracuse. But he worked really hard on these new stand-up neutral grip rules, and he had himself a very solid season last year. He took 263 faceoffs. He won 149 of them. Jake Fopp, he's had a great career at Syracuse. He needs around 200 more faceoff wins to put himself, I believe, at second all-time career faceoff wins at Syracuse. And you think about some of the faceoff guys that program's had through the years, and it would be quite an achievement if Fopp could get that done this year. So, Jake Fopp, had two amazing games against P.D. LaSalle. You can't take that away from him. He was hot and cold a little bit during the season, but he's, like I said, he's been working extremely hard. I expect him to, kind of take a step up from where he was last year. He split some time with a senior, Danny Varello, who graduated this past summer. If Fopp had been struggling, they usually went to Varello, and he had very quick hands. He gave them some lightning in a bottle when they needed it. And now with Varello gone, we're going to get if I was a betting man, I believe we're going to get a heavy dose of Fopp this year from Syracuse. But in the event that if Fopp needs a blow, or God forbid he gets hurt, or if he is struggling, let's go down this roster a little bit here. Let's see who else they have. Let's talk about Jack Savage. Great name, Jack Savage, Oregon. He's from Oregon. He's a sophomore. You look at him, he kind of looks like he should be playing football for Syracuse. He's a big, strong, athletic-looking kid. I do remember when he got in as a freshman last season against Notre Dame. Charlie Leonard kind of had that highlight goal on him. But, at the end of the day, he was actually 6 of 11 against Notre Dame in that one game. And the minute I saw him, I was like, man, this kid's got some good size. He certainly looks the part. He only took 24 faceoffs total last season. So again, not a very big sample size, but he was 8 of 24, 6 of 11 versus Notre Dame. I'm curious to see how he looks so far this season. He's certainly athletic enough to be on that field. Stick skills wise, I'm sure coming from Oregon, going to Syracuse has been a big adjustment for him. But with Gate now working with him and all these guys, I'm sure his stick skills have gotten much stronger, and I'm sure we will see a lot more of Jack Savage this season as well. They did lose Luke Talago. He was I think rising junior. He ended up transferring down to Jacksonville University over this past winter break. So we'll talk about Jacksonville when we down the road a little bit. But they also have a freshman in another Jack. His name's Jack Fine. He was a 4-star recruit out of according to Inside Lacrosse. He went to Avon Old Farms. I believe that's in Connecticut. He was a reclass. I remember seeing Jack Fine down at the Under Armour underclassmen games. Back when again, this was 2 years ago when we were still knee down, but very quick. pretty good size, strong, tough. I do recall he had a couple, a pretty good stick. He picked up some nice ground balls a couple times I saw him. I heard he's came into Syracuse and he's competing with those guys. So who knows? Maybe we'll see a little bit of Jack Fine this upcoming season. If I was a betting man, though, I still think it's Fopp's position to lose right now. I would love to see Jake Fopp, finish his career, at Syracuse, with a bang. I think Fopp's got a shot at maybe even getting a shot with a PLL team this upcoming summer, but we'll see. I know, he's just focused solely on helping Syracuse get back to the NCAA tournament this upcoming season. So I would love to see it. That's all I got on Syracuse. Let's see how it all shakes out. All right, so that's a wrap on our second episode here of the Faceoff Zone Podcast. Got to be honest, I'm really jacked up right now after breaking down all those ACC heavy hitters. I cannot wait for this season to get going. Cannot wait to talk about some of these big face-off matchups and storylines. So stay tuned for that. Please tell a fellow face-off fanatic about this podcast. Let's keep this thing going here. If you haven't checked out my YouTube channel yet, please do so. Check out the Faceoff Zone YouTube channel. Give it a subscribe. I plan on uploading a ton of fun full game face-off highlights that you're not going to want to miss. You can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok at FO_zone for some fun videos and breakdowns as well. You can also check out our FO Zone campus store, where I partnered up with some of the biggest college face-off guys in D1, D2, and D3 right now, selling some really fun merchandise. Go get yourself a couple tees before the season gets going. They're perfect tailgate shirts, and let's have some fun. I hope everybody had a great New Year. Happy New Year to everybody out there. Hope everyone had a great holiday season, and everybody's ready to go now for this upcoming 2022 college lacrosse season. It's going to be legendary. So, as always, you guys know where to find me. I will see everybody next time in the zone.